Awesome. Let me go back to, now I have one last thing to share on the presentation. So yeah, as I said, it's summertime. So in terms of WordPress news and events, not a lot going on. The only thing is, again, this is after the fact. I don't know if we shared this last time, but WordCamp Europe, it is ended a couple weeks ago. It was in Portugal, but the nice thing about, again, talking about virtual is the fact that I think this one was mixed. I don't know if this was entirely in person or virtual, but you can go.
They live streamed everything.
Okay, which is great.
Yeah.
So, good thing for us, again, because it's one of the nice things about the past year or two is being able to attend all these WordCamps. So just do a search on YouTube for WordCamp Europe 2022, or go to their website, europe.wordcamp.org. They do have the sessions available. And as Peter pointed out previously, unfortunately, they haven't really broken them apart session by session. So it's like one day, part one, one day, part two.
Yeah.
But if you go to the website, you can kind of figure out, who the speakers are and just fast forward that way. So a lot of great presenters. Again, the WordCamps are always I think, a great place to hear about the, current and future of WordPress. So check that one out. Again, everything's free there. Tool plugin spotlight. We don't really have a tool and plugin spotlight. So let me,
Ray, let me just add to the events. One thing, there's two additional things I would add to it. One is the Page Builder Summit at pagebuildersummit.com. That's going on all this week. So that's a free to attend. So today happened. I think they're going to have everything available for like 48 hours for free, but they also sell something called the Power Pack where you get everything. That has a lot of really good sessions in it. And then the other thing, and I'm just curious because it's not that far away, and Ray and I are not traveling, but next week is WordCamp Montclair in Montclair, New Jersey. So I'm curious, that I think is being called the first live WordCamp in the US in a couple of years now. So
Gene's in New Jersey. Gene, you could drive there and over far away. The other news to share.
Yeah, I'll bring my camera and live stream it.
Live stream it for us. Yeah, I don't know if they've announced if they're going to try to do any live streaming yet. The thing that was interesting about Europe is that they said, but they never posted anything until like the day before. And they did a great job, but they had a fixed camera on it, and they only did the stage stuff, and then they had some set like interview stuff. But of course, you miss all the hallway chat stuff and things like that, which necessarily you would have to miss. But as far as streaming the presentations, I thought they did a really good job.
The other bit of news, and Sue, I give credit to Sue for this, is, and I forgot this, so I think somebody also mentioned this on our Facebook page as well, but there was a pretty critical security event vulnerability reported for Ninja Forms. And Ninja Forms is a extremely popular WordPress form plugin. So if anyone is using that on your website, hopefully you're aware of this and have done the updates to it. So, but yeah, thanks Sue for bringing that to everyone's attention. And again, it's one of those, we talk often about updating plugins and keeping things updated. And unfortunately, hackers target these popular ones. So, this is one that just happened when it was just recent this week, I think, or in the past few days or so. So, yeah, make sure you're updating if you're using that plugin. Again, thanks Sue for that. So tonight, let's set the stage for I guess summer school. Where do we go here from summer school? So, again, thanks everyone for joining for summer school. At least the ideas that Peter and I kind of discussed around this is, I know we've been doing a lot of presentations. We've been doing a lot of presentations the past few months about different topics, things happening in WordPress. But I think this is a good opportunity during the summer to sort of step back and kind of look at the big picture of things. And just looking at the chat question that popped up, I'm picking on you there, Mike, for a second. We've had a lot of new people join our meetup group in the past couple months or so. So I think it might be a good time now to kind of, again, we'll start a little bit at super high level, back to basics thing around WordPress and start there. answering basic questions. And again, we're looking for all of you to throw the questions out for us. We'll start the conversation a bit, but we're really looking for some direction and guidance. And then as we go along, we'll probably get a bit deeper into topics. We'll probably go off on side trails and things like that. So we'll try not to make this rambly for 2 hours, but I think from a focus standpoint, I'd like to start a little bit high at a high level. So Peter, I don't know if you mind, we didn't talk about this at all, but just to kick off the conversation and some thoughts, especially for beginners.
Yeah.
I thought I'd kind of even I'm going to throw a bomb out there just to get discussion going. And this came to mind recently, well, in the past month or two, from a couple of clients who reached out to me. So again, just real quick introductions of myself and Peter. We normally introduce ourselves through slides. So I'm Ray Michno. I'm one of the organizers of the meetup group. I've been a software developer for most of my regular career, and then I've been a independent website developer using WordPress for the past 4-ish years or so now. Peter, do you want to introduce yourself real quick before I?
Yeah, I'm Peter Ingersoll. I live in South Windsor, Connecticut. I have been using technology to solve marketing communications challenges, and was lucky enough to be working at the Hartford Current, Connecticut's major newspaper at the time when the web kind of launched. So self-taught on a whole lot of things, and then moved through different things and picked up WordPress 10 plus years ago as a way of getting things done. So you know, I'm really in tune with those who are looking to teach themselves. I think that's why we're involved here, is, you know, being people who just kind of try to go and figure out things, so we understand the challenges, especially in WordPress. We'll get into that. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
So the controversial thing I'm going to throw out there is, do you even need to be using WordPress? And it's like, wait a minute, you're joining a WordPress meetup. What is this guy saying? Are you crazy? And just to give you some context on this, like in the past couple of months or so, I had a couple of people approach me for projects. And so one was a nonprofit where they're basically trying to start up a dog park in their local community. And they're like, we need a website. And I'm like, okay, what are you going to do with it? And if you haven't watched, we did this series starting last year around really building a website from scratch. So we have all that on YouTube of let's build the site together. And in the very first one of those episodes, we talked about your goals and the whole planning process before you even do any coding. So again, that person, when they reached out to me, and I started digging a little bit deeper, and I'm like, well, what do you want to do? And where are you in terms of this thing of, like, you know, like, what do you want to do? They basically want to raise awareness for this dog park in their community. I said, okay, so are you on social media? And they said, well, so we have a Facebook page, but nobody updates it. Nobody does this. No one knows how to do this. No one knows how to do that. And my thing was, after a while, I'm like, not that I'm talking myself out of business, but this wouldn't have been some giant project. I said, well, if no one knows how to do that, what makes you think anyone's going to do WordPress? Right. You know, and I said to them specifically, hey, I do WordPress, and it's, you know, it's a bit of a complicated tool, not complicated, but, you know, it takes time to learn it. And then another flip side was, I had another person reached out to me talking about starting up an e-commerce business, again, sort of a little mom and pop shop e-commerce business. And, you know, he kept saying to me, he goes, we want to sell these products, you know, we want to start small, someday we want to be big. And I'm like, oh, that's good. I go, have you sold a product yet? No. Okay. Well, we want a website. I said, it's not going to sell your products, you know, so what do you really want? So, you know, again, I think people jump to websites. And again, well, obviously we're here as a WordPress group. I'm not saying WordPress isn't the answer, but I think a lot of times, especially from a business or nonprofit, you've got to look at where you're starting from and what are your goals, you know. So maybe your goal right now shouldn't, or your highest priority right now shouldn't be a website. Maybe your highest priority should be getting followers, selling a single product, you know, through word of mouth, getting your business going. If you're a blogger, you know, we have several bloggers on here too. I see Sherry and Tad. I'm like, your first thing shouldn't be jumping into WordPress, trying to learn how to blog. You should be writing, you know, getting into the rhythm of writing, being consistent with things like that. So just throwing that out there first, that I think a lot of people, get very excited about projects or your business, which is great, that motivation. But then I don't want people sometimes coming into WordPress as a beginner, and then you see, I mean, I've had a couple of questions here, through our WordPress meetup of people like, where do I begin? How do I connect the pieces? It can be daunting. It really can, because there's a lot of parts that you need to connect. So one thing I'll just throw out there, and I won't spend a lot of time on it, but just, again, food for thought too. We don't talk about it very often because, quite frankly, each of these has pluses and minuses, but sometimes WordPress might not be the right tool for you in the beginning. Again, depending on what you're trying to do, WordPress, we'll talk a lot about WordPress tonight, but just to kind of set the mind in motion a little bit. If you're a beginner and you haven't created a site at all, think back to your goals. Like if your goal is strictly to start selling e-commerce, and you don't know, you don't know how well you're going to do. You don't know if you're going to be in business a year from now, months from now. Maybe what you want to do is use a platform like Shopify. If you're not familiar with Shopify, Shopify is one of these all-in-one, it has a website tool, it has e-commerce built into it, has templates, you can, do shipping and everything. So that might be the place to start, for something really simple. We'll talk about the pros and cons of these solutions versus WordPress in a minute, but for somebody just getting off the ground, that could be a good starting point. Wix, these other ones you hear about, Wix, Squarespace, Weebly. I don't think you hear much about Weebly these days. Wix and Squarespace, but are probably the two most popular ones. If you want, back to this dog park guys, all they needed was a single page. They need a single page saying, here's who we are, here's what we want, here's some information. I'm like, WordPress is overkill for you. It really, at this point, it's overkill. Eventually when you start collecting donations, you start putting hours up, you have all this other stuff, call me back. At this point, you just need a page. And it could be, I actually suggested they go stick with their Facebook page and refresh that. But, some of these other tools like Squarespace and Wix, the nice thing about them, is they're all-in-one solutions, meaning you don't need to go hunt down hosting. You don't need to figure out plugins. You're just paying one bill, you get a website, and everything is there. They do all the updates for you. You got a support person. You can set up emails there. That's the good news of them. So again, just throwing this out for food for thought for beginners maybe on our session or watching this afterwards too. Yes, we're a WordPress meetup group, but what made me think about it too is what Peter was saying in terms of solving problems. Sometimes you just walk around WordPress hammer, everything looks like a nail. So I think be aware of other options out there. And again, even in this, you can start off with one of these. Again, the bad point of some of these, just covering why WordPress long-term is probably a better solution, is you kind of get stuck in their ecosystems. So Wix or Shopify, you can't easily extract all your information once you set up a website with them. In fact, it's quite hard, and intentionally so. They want to keep you inside of their bubble. But if you're doing a proof of concept, you're just trying to get a business idea out there, you just want to get some information out quickly, these could be a lot quicker solutions. And then later, phase 2 of your project, phase 2 of your business, then you want to either start building, as you learn WordPress, come to our meetups every month, you learn more and more. That may be a second phase of what you want to do on the website. So just kind of a strange way to start a summer school thing, but Sue has a good one too, WordPress.com. If you just want to learn WordPress, that's another thing too. You just want to set up something. You don't want to worry about website hosting, because that gets confusing, I think, to people. It's like, well, how do I find the best host? How do I find the best this? And you get, analysis paralysis. So there's other options out there. Peter, any thoughts to this?
Oh, so many thoughts. And the funny thing is that, I agree and don't agree with a lot of these points from different perspectives. The biggest challenge that WordPress has is there are so many ways to do things. There are, the answer to every question is it depends, as we'll probably say even a few times tonight. There's a lot of, and we can, whenever you want to get into some of the pros and cons, a lot of the pros of having a website early on is it is the one thing that you could potentially have control over versus being on all these other platforms. So a guy like me is saying, it is, the first thing is when somebody said, if you ever hear somebody say WordPress is easy, it's not easy. It can be made easier with a whole lot, with a number of things, and we can even show you things. You know, you can set up the framework for a really good website in literally minutes, which is far different than when you go and look at tutorials that might spend a whole lot of time, where you're looking at the ways of doing things. It's just endless. And you know, being able to ask the right questions, you kind of figure out where and how you want to do, and hopefully with like a group like this, where, you know, Ray and I are trying to approach this from a both all-inclusive and at the same time understanding that we have a lot of folks who are learning things new. We're not heavy coders. I'm not a coder at all, so I wouldn't call myself a WordPress developer. I'm a builder. I'm a maker. I'm a designer. You know, I'm the guy who could put together all the Lego blocks and make a lot of things work together, which is, again, overkill for what a lot of folks are looking for. So the main thing is to understand that it can initially be overwhelming, and then by doing what Ray says and kind of looking to see what do we need to do, and you know, I see questions that sometimes get asked by folks that are so deep down a level of complexity, when it's like, no, even if you're starting with WordPress, it doesn't have to be super complex to start. You would have a platform that allows you to do things. It's also what I've been noticing a lot lately are a lot of the bias that's coming from, you know, like Ray, you just showed something. Shopify is showing you why Shopify is a good platform, and I can look at some of the points where they have, you know, a big X on the WordPress, and I'm like, that's not completely true. That's oversimplifying, because the one thing that some of these platforms have is the platform is delivered as sort of this complete product that you can do the things that they're allowing you to do in a way that's done in that way. The WordPress environment is an initial platform that has all these capabilities that can be enhanced through the things that we add, the themes and the plugins and additional code and all. And so we'll get to it. There was a question Mike had about, you know, what exactly is a plugin. We'll get to that. But all of these things that turn this base platform into all these other tools. But you don't necessarily need to say, you know, that everything's going to apply. And there's going to be very different ways to do something that initially might think, oh, I want to go this way, and this way. We had somebody, I'm not sure if she's here, Lois, who had a question about events and WooCommerce and all, and we'll address that a little bit, but it's like, you can come at that challenge many different ways. So sometimes it's like, don't worry so much about, oh, this plugin does this, now how do I make that apply to the thing I'm doing? It's much more important to think about, what is it that I'm trying to do? And how can I deliver it in the way that makes the most sense based on complexity, you know, the support that you're going to get. And support could be from here, like if you're using something obscure versus something that's much more known, you're going to have a wider base of support. You know, even just picking tool sets or something that have user groups and Facebook groups and you know, YouTube channels that show you the training and things like that can make a difference, because you're like, oh, there's a support structure versus, you know, I'm going down these rabbit holes. And we know in our history with this group, we've talked to people and it's like they've gone so far down certain rabbit holes that they didn't even need to go in the first place. But not knowing and trying and getting deeper and deeper can get, you can get overwhelmed really fast. So
if I can answer, Mike, I'm going to use your question as a starting off point for getting into some demo things. So let's get real specific about what is a plugin, and I'm going to share my screen again because I think I have my demo site up somewhere. So we'll talk more later, and again, feel free to ask questions as we're going through this. Anyone, if there's parts of WordPress that you want us to dive into a little bit deeper, but just plugins is probably a good place to start, because I think that's one of the things that really sets WordPress apart from those other platforms. So again, great, thank you for the leading question, Mike. those other platforms, they have things that are similar to plugins. So think of a plugin. So what is a plugin? Just at a conceptual level, it's an additional add-on feature or something that gives your website some functionality that it didn't have before. So here's a good example. Look at my really simple. This is a WordPress website. There's really nothing here. It's kind of a silly blog. I think I've shown the site before. It's a blog with a bunch of cute cat pictures and all that. So the site doesn't do much. So let's say I wanted to have e-commerce on this site. Well, there's a couple of ways I could do that. I could create my own e-commerce system from scratch. I'm a software developer. That would be crazy for me to do. Or I can use I could add something to my website, which is what a plugin is. It adds functionality to your site, and it doesn't have to be something as big as e-commerce. In fact, there's plugins. Peter has that line of there's a plugin for that, because there usually is. So one really nice thing about WordPress, this is a good thing and a bad thing, is there's always something out there. As he said, before you think of writing some code or before you think of doing some crazy solution, first look for somebody else's solution. So in WordPress, it's as easy as, and I'll do one in a second, it's as easy as saying, I want to add a new plugin to the site, and it immediately starts off by searching this list of freely available plugins that are hosted, or they're basically hosted through WordPress itself. You can also purchase plugins, pay money for a plugin and install it differently, but that's probably, we can talk about that separately if someone wants to see what that looks like. But in general, here's the thing that's intimidating. I don't know if it even shows it anymore, but if you look at the plugins, it's probably, if I go to, let me go to WordPress.org. The other way you can view plugins, if you just go to WordPress.org. So Sue had mentioned WordPress.com versus WordPress.org. Everything we're talking about with WordPress, is again another confusing thing, is around WordPress.org. That's the open source kind of place where you find stuff about WordPress. WordPress.com, again, we'll skip that conversation. That's the paid thing. But anyway, in here, this is another way to search for plugins. So look at this, 59,000 and counting free plugins. That's intimidating. So how do you know, what to find? It all depends on what problem you're trying to solve. So just for example, Peter had mentioned, I think somebody brought up, I don't know if Lois is here or not, but Lois was talking about, I think it was Lois, maybe it was Jean. So it's just throwing out this suggestion around events, and just showing an example of creating on a website. Let's say for my cat website here, we have another site we're doing something similar. What if I want to show people events that are coming up for my cat shelter or whatever? Well, I can create that all from scratch through WordPress. Again, I can go down that route. I can create these post types and all this other stuff to do it, or I can go and search for events, and I'm going to find probably one of the most popular plugins in all of WordPress, because that's over 800,000 installs. It's called the Events Calendar. It's free. I click on it. Again, I'm doing this on a demo site. We have a whole other series of tutorials around how to install plugins safely and how to find them, but just for the sake of time. And then I activate this thing. And again, literally in 1 second, you're going to see now I have this thing up here called events. So now I can start adding events to my site. I can add a new event for, let's say, cat fundraiser, not fundraiser, et cetera. So I can put all this kind of stuff in here. It has all these things. Here's the date of my event. Here's the venue. This plugin is a free one. There's actually a paid version. So this is the thing too. You hear about this in software quite a bit these days, kind of freemium, the free, free/premium model. So the free version does a lot. It really does. There's additional paid add-ons, and if you click on this, just leave the site. Again, the events calendar, they're very, very popular plugin for doing event things. So you can basically have add-ons to do everything, like tickets. It connects to Eventbrite. You can connect to your your iPhone if you're at a real event and you're selling tickets. Connect to this. You can do tons and tons of things on it. So this is the power of WordPress. It's this whole ecosystem of plugins, and we haven't talked about themes and all that stuff yet, but that's what a plugin does. And the beauty of WordPress, one of the things that I really love as kind of a nerd too, is that it's not magic. How did this thing just create this in my website? Well, I actually can go and look at, where is it these days? It's under tools. Oh yeah, that's for themes. I guess plugin editor you have to turn on separately, but I can actually, that installed some software on my website, but I can look at it. I won't bring it up right now, but I can look at the code behind it and see what it's doing. So if I have any questions, I'm learning, I can actually look at it. It's not some magic, black box thing, just doing something that I'm not aware of. So hopefully that answered your question a little bit of, again, think of plugins as just they're adding functionality to your site, and it depends on what you want to add. WordPress by itself is plain vanilla. It's a blank slate. And again, that's what's going to be intimidating to people. It's like, where do I start? Well, sometimes you're going to need 5, 10 plugins to do the thing you want to do. Sometimes you just need one, depending on what you want to do.
Yeah, at its core, WordPress is a place where you write posts and pages. Posts are kind of dated and categorized writing articles. Pages are more, standing information, and then how you connect them together. Then you start layering things on or adding things on. So the theme, how does it look? And plugins, are you adding functionality? It's really all different ways of adding code that make things work. And what's also interesting, we haven't really ever brought this up, and it's kind of beyond the whole thing. But the one thing about WordPress is everything involved with WordPress is an open source GPL license, right? So what this means is, yes, you can go in and look exactly what the code is doing. And in fact, you can take that code, modify it, and in effect, publish it. There was a group that didn't like some of the things that happened with WordPress itself, and they forked it. They made a copy and then started, building out their own version of WordPress. So it's a really fascinating environment. Something that when you get into the Shopify's and Wix, those are closed platforms owned by those companies, whereas WordPress, out of the WordPress.org, and we can touch on that. We've mentioned that a few times, the difference between .com, .org, and all. But WordPress.org, all of this stuff that you're seeing is open source. It is, you can get at, look at, and manipulate the code behind things. Coming from a non-coder.
Gene, did you have a question? I saw your hand was raised.
Yeah, I was just wondering, so you're using this event plugin. What does it look like on the website? If someone goes to your website, what does the events look like?
I will show you. I'll show you an example of this website that I maintain. It could look like this. So you can view a month view as a calendar. You can view a day view. And even this styling, this is the out of the box one. I don't even think I have the pro version of events calendar on here. But yeah, once. And
just following up right now what you're saying, because I think this is important, kind of, again, with a lot of these things, especially the plugins, you very often have the free version that is in the repository, and then there may be a pro version of something. So the events calendar is a great example of that, where the free version, very functional, a lot of things, it has a ton that's right out of the box for no charge. You can, if you know certain things like CSS, a way of kind of writing some code that just the way things look, you can have more control. There's even some other plugins that help with some of the things, or you can look at what the events calendar by Tribe. I forget the name of the company itself, but they have a pro version, and the pro version has an extended, now, they may have in the pro version for a certain, amount that you would pay in a yearly license, for example, a lot more capability, often having to do with what the calendar, like, the additional control you might have over calendars or filtering, or, these things that, you're connecting to ticketing and things like that. So you'll find that a lot, where there's a free version, and then there's the premium or the pro version that you purchase the license for, that adds capability to what they're giving you for free.
Yeah, and
a lot of the things that we run, we use a free version.
And I'm showing some of the ones. So here's again some of the add-ons you can get. So virtual events, Pro, and some of it is additional views. So that this is the thing too. So if you don't like the out of the box view, and even this you can manipulate it too. I think I just have this set by default at list view. You can do list day, month view. There's also the nice thing about events calendar, because it's been around for so long, there's also free plugin. There's free plugins on top of the events calendar. So I think this one is using the events calendar shortcode. So I wanted something in here that displayed the 3 most current events, and it displays them on my homepage as a shortcode, and it formats them for me. So that's the nice thing about it, is you can get additional, some of these. And WooCommerce is another one. We'll go into WooCommerce today, but because some of these plugins have been around for so long, there's been other businesses, building things on top of the plugin. So you get access to that whole ecosystem on top of what you have. So that hopefully answers a little bit for Mike and others around, what is a plugin? Again, a plugin is just an additional piece of functionality you add to your site. The nice thing about plugins too, is, as the name kind of implies, let me just share my screen again one more time. Sorry, turn this on and off. Is because they're fairly granular too. So what I mean by that is, now I can actually, if I don't like that plugin, I don't like the events calendar, I can just deactivate it. Sometimes you have to tell them why. I'm just doing it temporarily. And not all of them do this, but they want to know. And once you do this, now the rest of my site works. It's just now the events thing. If I had a page like this one I was showing here, that obviously won't display. But the rest of my blog posts, all the pages, they're all fine. So you can turn these things on and off at a pretty granular level. So that's a great thing about plugins as well.
Yep.
All right, so plugins. That's starting point. So what else? This is our interactive summer school, everyone. So what other places would you like us to go? Should we stay at the high level of explaining WordPress stuff? Again, no stupid questions here. Any question's a good question. And feel free to unmute yourselves. I think when everyone joins, they're muted. Judith Ann has a question.
Hello, guys. You're doing such a good job. I have not checked on the new one, 6.0, but previous to that, if I wanted to put a PDF on the site, I'd have to put a link and the PDF would be on its separate page. And I have noticed that I don't put PDFs on now. Everything goes right on the site, the whole thing, right on the page. There's no linking to it on a separate page. So I don't know if 6 corrected that.
Well, that by default, if you add a PDF to the page, it will open this up now in a window where you can actually view the PDF right on the page.
Yeah.
That is the default way. To do the other thing would be to add the PDF to your media library, assuming you're hosting your own PDF.
Mhm.
In the media library now, one thing that has been added in the last few versions is a simple way to copy the URL to the PDF. And now you instead of dropping that media right in, now you would create a link as text and then link it to the PDF, and that would open it separately. Or you can add a button if you're using the block editor, or
let me see if I can do one real quick. So if I have there's a bunch of garbage in here, but let's say I'm going to add something in here. Do I add it just as an attachment, or I have? Let me move my window over. So I have a PDF.
Yeah. So if you add,
Oops. I guess I just opened my browser. Sorry, move you guys to the right. So this was the PDF. I tried dropping it directly onto the page. So I have to add it as a. What do we add this as? Is it a media?
it's just media. Yeah.
Media.
I believe. Let me again. We're in a very fluid time. So.
This one was new. I know this is embed.
So previously, I would just pick it up from my media file.
Yeah.
And it would be a link to another page where the PDF is resting.
Oh, here
And now I can't do that.
So now if I drop the PDF in here, it's showing it as, is that what you see,
Yeah.
Judith Ann? Yep. So now I wonder at this place, at this point, so if people saw, I basically dragged the PDF into this block in WordPress, and now it's giving me the view. So yeah, that was new in, I think it was 5.9, maybe.
Yeah.
In 6. So is your question, Judith Ann, how do you want to convert this back to just a link that people?
Yeah, I don't want to take up the whole page if I've got, maybe 10 pages on the PDF. I just want a link.
I wonder if.
I don't want it on the page. I want to link it to its own separate page.
Let's go look at, I need to be clicking on the right thing. Okay, oops. So at this point, I clicked off of it and it's showing it as a view. So the good question is, can I show inline embed? So what is that? If I turn that off, and now, now it's hidden it. Did you see what I did?
So that's, yeah, so that's one way of doing it. All it does is it removes the embed.
Mm-hmm.
The other, what I think you want to do is, Ray, if you wanted to go to maybe in another tab. Open
So if you click on the link, the Newington Picnic Rental, or you'd have to click on the download.
This one shows it as a download button. I think that's the new thing that got added. So let me see what does this, again, a nice thing about WordPress, people don't know, is you can always click on preview. So it's not really saving it. So in this case, it's showing it as a link and it's added a download button. So both of them are doing it. But the option now is I can turn off the download.
It doesn't open up a separate, it doesn't open up a separate page then.
If I
download it.
I think it downloads it. So now if I go back to preview this and go back to my preview tab. So here it's a separate link.
And click on it.
It's opening up in this page, but that is, I think that option is something, I don't know if this has it by default, but that could be another option you have to set in here about where you want.
Well, it's right there. Open a new tab is just go.
Okay, I missed it. Yep, there you go. Oh, even better.
Now, probably what you're used to doing, Judith Ann, that you could, or something that I would recommend that you do, is you add the text to the page. So Ray, if you go to
highlight some text.
Right.
Yeah.
And then go to add a link.
Oh, am I on? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm in a weird post template thing. Let me add another.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's just do a paragraph, I guess. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Now, you can either go to your media library, but if you go up to, so you need to know what the link is.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
And you know it, just go to, I'm like pointing at my screen. Yeah. You just had it either.
No, this was actually on my desktop. I need to go.
Okay. Go to the page where you were.
Yeah, back here.
Everybody, we're overcomplicating it because I'm trying to vocally direct somebody. Yeah.
Link, or a copy link address. Sorry, copy link address. Yep. So now I'm back here.
Yeah.
Make this a hyperlink.
Right.
In there.
Paste the link there, and then open a new tab.
Oops. And then if I do preview here. So this is the one I added. So it works just like the one above it. So this one opens in a new tab, or you could just drop it in this way.
Sounds like that's what you wanted to do, Judith Ann?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the default for a PDF is to embed it. Then you can decide, well, I don't want to show it. And then you have that kind of wonky thing. And I think you can edit the text and the downloads, kind of the same thing. It's easier if you went and you uploaded a PDF, and then right when you're in that media library, you'll see copy link or copy URL. They've made that easier. And then you just add your text and link it to and paste in the PDF
Okay.
file.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's yet another one of those things where an additional, hey, isn't this great? A lot of people have been using plugins or doing embedding. Now we're going to make that all happen easy. And then, you know, some of us will look at it and go, I liked it the other way.
It is kind of nice. I mean, the thing they added though, it is nice that it does give you this additional functionality right here that you can make this as a button, you know, so you can do a bit more styling. It's basic still. We talked about this before with some of these blocks in WordPress right now. They give you a little bit more than nothing, but they're not quite the full styling that you'd want to do. Because let's say I want to move this button down, I want to actually style this button. Well, right now I'm assuming, I could be wrong, but I'm assuming that I'm gonna have to write some code to style that. I can change the text at least, they click me, but yeah, at this point there's no control I can have over this button color or anything like that. I can write CSS to do that.
Right. So for everybody who's listening in, there's 20 ways to do virtually the same thing. One of the ways we could do what Ray was just showing is to use a button block, style the button block if you wanted it rounded or blue or whatever, and then make the URL, make the link to, in this case, that PDF. So you could do it as text, and then you add, say, make this text link to things. You can add a button and say, make the button link to this thing, or you can use the embed feature. And probably 20 more ways of doing it. So that's what can be very overwhelming, you know, especially when you go out. And this is one thing I say quite often, for those who've been with us for a long time, you know that, but you know, you will often go and look at a tutorial and go, this looks nothing like what I saw in our meetup or what I saw in this other tutorial. And that's because what you're seeing is dependent on a number of things. It could be dependent on the theme that they're using. It could be dependent on the plugins that they're using. Are they using the block editor, which is now the default editor? Hopefully at this point, most people are. Or quite simply, you could be looking at a very old tutorial. That's one of the things. So kind of check the date on the tutorial. Or you might be looking at a tutorial that uses a page builder versus the, you know, that's a whole nother topic we can kind of touch on, but it's another way of creating pages. So not to scare anyone away, but the idea is try not to think, oh my gosh, I'm just not getting it. My brain doesn't work that way. It's like, there's probably something I'm missing that's relatively simple, and it may be that's because they're doing it with a plugin or a different theme or something like that.
And this is just a great example. Again, thanks, Judith Ann, for this. I mean, just look at this. Here's 3 different ways to do the same thing. But this one is this one's the file. And again, I turned off the embedding, but this could have shown inline. This was I totally forgot about that. Peter said, you know, just add a button, and then the button can link to that same PDF. Or highlight some text to make it a hyperlink. It can hyperlink to anything, pages or PDFs, and then open that in another. So yeah, this going back to the earlier thing about flexibility. This is the nice thing and the confusing thing about WordPress to beginners. Sometimes they give you a lot of different options, and depending on your use case, you know, depending on how you want this button. In this case, this PDF. Maybe I don't know, Judith Ann, this was your example or not, but let's say that it's inside of a large piece of text or a blog article or something like that. So you want it to be just a hyperlink within an article. Well, you wouldn't want some big button in the middle of your text article. That makes no sense. But you know, maybe you want it as click here to download your free PDF of whatever. Then you know you have that flexibility. So yeah, I think a lot of it goes back to start with the question: what's the problem you're trying to solve? And then as you go into WordPress, there's always more than one way to solve that problem.
Ray, just for fun, if you want, go to our YouTube page and grab a URL of one of our videos, and then just paste that into the page that you're working on, and you can see again what used to be a number of steps that you would have to do is now you just paste the URL. And did you notice that our 6.0 video got the most number of views so far?
Yeah.
So as I said, it's kind of light right now in terms of WordPress news and events.
Oh, you clicked on it.
We just.
Oh, is that you or is that me?
No, not me.
Facebook page.
Oh boy, I can hear my own annoying voice echoing in the back. Is that what I sound like? Let me show, hold on, let me share my screen again. That's hilarious. Yeah, so what Peter was saying, I grabbed off the sides, you have to see me scrolling through YouTube. Yeah, but you're right. One of the nice things that they've added in is this idea of embedding. Oops, oh, sorry, wrong button. See, even happens to me. I don't want to edit the whole site, I just want to edit that page again. I go back to my page. Sorry, I'm flying around a little bit quick here. I'll go to this page. So I've copied a URL link. And now I'm going to add this somewhere on, let me add this to the bottom here. So if I just paste it in, oops, add my block, sorry. Paste that in,
Yeah.
There we go, yeah.
Yeah, you just paste it in and now it's embedding the video to one step kind of thing where it used to be. But now, like, there's times when I want to open that in a Lightbox and I might have a plugin that knows to take a video and open it up in the Lightbox, which is when you click on the video and it goes big and the background goes dark and things like that. So, you know, what gets interesting is when you might go to a plugin and find a plugin that says how to, you know, a plugin to embed a video and start going all that way, when actually in the latest versions, it's as easy as pasting a URL, if that's all you need it to do. Or you might put it in a block container and put a background or something like that. So what you might have used a plugin before or might still, you can also do as easily as, you know, open up a container, drop the link in, give it a background color, you're done, you know, using kind of the core capabilities.
And that's a great point. So just like we said earlier about before you think about reinventing the wheel, there's probably a plugin that does that. You know, as you said, first look at, especially, you know, we say Gutenberg, let's just say WordPress. The editor in WordPress has really improved quite a bit over the past couple of years. So now there's a lot of native blocks that you, or widgets you drag on that do things that, you know, the gallery block is a great example. That's really been enhanced quite a bit. So if you just have a simple gallery of, you know, let's say images you want to drop into a page, there's plugins, there's plenty of plugins that can do light boxes, they can do all these kind of crazy things. But if you just want something simple, stick with the one that comes in WordPress. And sometimes the benefit of that is they're going to continue, it's free. That's the first benefit. The other part is WordPress, as they release new versions, they're going to support that and they're going to keep fixing that and enhancing it over time, hopefully, you know. So you know, by sticking with the core pieces of WordPress, you really benefit. And again, I think that's something. Always look to see if there's already a widget that does kind of what you need to do.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look at other questions and things that we have. So who else? Feel free to bring up other questions as I read through the chat. Let's see. Gerald, he said, you have large videos, audio, and PDF files. There's a large number of each. I'm testing the YouTube and Vimeo to test the video files. What's best for audio and PDFs? So Gerald, do you mean in terms of like embedding an audio file onto like a website?
Yes, I'm just trying to find the best way to store them. Like videos you could store on YouTube and not put them in your media file. And same thing with Vimeo. And I want to do a comparable thing with the audio files and very large stories that have been written by my family. Yep. And these are videos for my genealogy website. So I have probably, I'm digitizing as I can. I've got over 150 reels of 8mm video files that my grandfather took. So, and I've got probably 50 hours of audio files that he recorded. So I'm talking about a large volume.
Well, before we dive into the audio question specifically, this is great. So Gerald, you've brought up another topic that comes up quite often, which is, and I hear this sometimes from clients I work with, which is they'll have a video. You know, I have a video of whatever, I'm seeing with cats, my cat scratching himself for 20 minutes. Oh, that's a great video. Can you put it on my website? And as we just saw, it's very easy, in fact, deceptively easy, just to drag that file to to your website itself. So let me just show you again. This is great because we're kind of looking at different pieces of WordPress, but with at a very high level. So in WordPress, you have this thing called the Media Manager. So in my media library, these things can be almost anything. There's a caveat to that, but you can put PDFs in here. I can put videos in here, up to a file limit. And again, that's a caveat, but just because I can do something doesn't mean I should do something. So,
Right.
One of the reasons that, and Peter and Sue and others jump in on this, but one of the reasons you don't want to host a video directly from your website is because most likely your website can't stream that video as it's not streaming that video generally, it's not going to serve it up to people visiting as quickly as something like YouTube or Vimeo. Again, think about those companies have these huge, they call it content delivery networks all around the globe,
Right.
all located wherever people are. Those stream fast. So, that's the
Ray,
thing.
can I add,
Go ahead, Sue.
can I add something?
Yep.
We did a site for a synagogue and they had 15 years of audios of sermons.
Mhm.
And they, of course, nobody really ever listens to them very often, but they couldn't get rid of them and they were killing their hosting account. It was too big. They didn't
Yeah.
play well. So we checked out AWS, Amazon storage. It cost them like $2 a month because they don't get a great number of hits. So you might want to talk to Amazon strictly in terms of storage and occasional listening. Now, if you've got some like hot property, that's another story. But
Yep,
if
sure.
it's, small listens, small hits, try Amazon.
If I can tag on to that a little bit, then I'll shut up and let Peter throw in some ideas here too. So one of your options is, as we said, putting it right on your website, probably in most cases, probably the least good option. The next thing is offloading it to some sort of cloud storage place. And Sue had mentioned Amazon Web Services. Other ones that I've done for clients, depending on what it is a Google Drive. Something as simple as that. It's free, or you don't want to necessarily do Dropbox, but something like a shared Google Drive somewhere, or Microsoft OneDrive, that kind of thing, where you can then put the file there, and then you control sharing of who you want to share that with. You control the permissions and things like that. So that's another kind of general cloud sharing. And then there's the more specific, let's call it services, streaming services for different types of file formats. So audio, I haven't really done that. So I don't know if, Peter, you have any thoughts on that for specifically for audio streaming besides like iTunes and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, so both audio and video. So audio, SoundCloud is one of the major resources for storing audio files. A lot of people will also upload an audio file to YouTube and then just put a static image for the file. That's another way. And then there's similar to what Sue was saying with AWS. There is something that I have used called BunnyNet. It's a CDN, Bunny, BUNNY, like the little rabbit.net. And they host data at a penny a gigabyte. And that's like like I put it up $20 and never thought about it again because of just not using, using the data stream. It is incredibly inexpensive and very easy to use. So there are these, cloud storage, but ones that are much more in tune with streaming data, whether it's video. I'm using BunnyNet for this one purpose to stream the video. Now you can load it in YouTube. You can set YouTube videos as private and just have certain link to only if you have the link. So there's, again, like everything, are there any, what are your considerations for this? Do you want to share it with everybody, just a small group? Are you protecting the information and all? That's the YouTube versus the Vimeos and the, I forget the W one, which is on that platform,
Wisteria, yeah.
Wisteria, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, you have that many. If you're doing, you said 8mm film, right? So this is video content.
Yes.
Something like, you know, a private bunny net kind of thing could work. I mean, you can put it on YouTube and make it private. So
Well,
a lot of options.
I'm testing the private on YouTube right now, and I'm also testing, I got one up on Vimeo that I'm just testing to see which is the best, you know, what I want to use.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody is going to be too interested in watching my grandfather use his John Deere tractor to dig the basement for their new home.
Yeah.
You never know. You never know.
You'd be very surprised. You know, the things, there's a YouTube channel I subscribe to that uses all nostalgia, you know, like 8mm film videos and all. So
I've got a big 2-3 month trip that my grandparents took over out to the West Coast, and they videotaped everything in 1948.
oh, wow.
Yeah, that could be gold. So
Yeah.
right. Yeah, and actually Heather had also mentioned bunny.net too as another
Okay.
same option
Okay.
too. So great.
I appreciate the feedback.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Let's see.
There's a plugin. I know the premium version. I was just checking to see if there's a free version. It's called Presto Player, and that integrates directly with BunnyNet. In fact, when the guy who was selling it was originally, he presented it kind of as a package because it was so, you had absolute control over what you were presenting and for a relatively small amount of money. The Presto Player does have a premium version. There is a free version, and it would just be a matter of looking into whether the free version connects to the BunnyNet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah.
Mike has a good one about the mobile WordPress app. Yeah, I haven't played around. I looked at it a while ago, so I'll defer to others. But my understanding was basically the mobile WordPress app is just another way to kind of manage the back end of your website. I can't imagine using that for anything too complicated though, because as you saw, I mean, at least for me, I mean, I like having, you can't see in front of me, but I have my decent sized desktop monitor, my mouse and keyboard and all that. It probably would be tough. I mean, the only thing where I could see it would come in handy is if you're a blogger, for example, and you're approving comments or new users, or maybe you're checking on some of the back end statistics of your site. I don't have any experience with it. Peter or others, anyone have experience using the WordPress mobile app?
I just want to say it's pretty bare bones from what I've seen. It doesn't have you can't do a preview or anything. It's very hard to figure out where your page is. Like you go where my page and you see a bunch of pre-loaded content, like in a photograph, you see the picture that came with the frame, that kind of thing. And you have to go to a separate thing that says blog to see that what you've already done. And it's so complicated. I haven't used the computer one yet, but I found my profile. So I'll try doing it there because I'm so frustrated with the one on my phone.
Yeah.
The WordPress mobile app is for emergencies when you have to take something down right now. That's it. That's what it's best for. That's about all it does.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much they update that to keep it in sync with the real one. But you bring up another, just again, we probably don't have time tonight, but this is, if people are interested, another topic we can explore in the future, which is there are other offline, I should say offline, there are other ways to get content to your WordPress website besides using the backend. And again, this is primarily, well, I would say almost exclusively blog posts. So, you know, if you want to, so here's a classic example for bloggers in our audience. You know, in general, if you're writing a great blog post, you want to share that that blog post on multiple platforms. You want to share it on, you know, your Facebook page or whatever, Instagram, etc. You want to share it to different social media platforms. Well, a lot of times people start with WordPress and then share it from there out to other platforms. WordPress can actually take things in as well too. So there's tools. I'm drawing a blank on the probably one of the more popular ones, but there's basically third-party tools that you can go out there and you create your blog post there, and you can integrate it with your WordPress website so that the blog will then get pushed down to your site as well as these other platforms. So that's probably the only Yeah, and that you can do that too. I think there are mobile apps for some of those Hootsuite, the Hootsuite, the one I'm thinking of. That there's a few of those out there that can do things like that. That's probably the only mobile app thing I would use.
Yeah, I had a question about Pinterest. Can you link things from Pinterest into your blog, or would it have to be a picture you've already taken and put on your computer?
There's actually, I haven't used it, but there's, and I'll let Peter speak. There is a Pinterest media icon thing. Oops, sorry. Where's my?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I haven't used it.
If I go back to this page again, I'll go to a new page. New. They do have I'm pretty sure I saw it, unless I'm imagining it. Something in here for Pinterest. Embed Pinterest pins, boards, and profiles. So something to try. I'm not on Pinterest, so I could, but yeah, I mean, that's just another way. And this is the thing too, we talk about this quite a bit, is sharing your assets, or sharing your content, I should say, between different platforms. So yeah, definitely that's a great thing to do, is, you know, reuse it as much as possible.
Yeah, the connecting to social media accounts, you know, sometimes requires like API keys. Like you say, hey, I can only show my account. Like Instagram's a good example, where there's a plugin called it's called Smashing Balloon, and to connect it, you know, it needs to be your account to some degree, because I've connected with it's kind of weird. Let's just say there are sometimes gotchas that you have to go in and go, oh, I need to have access to that account and an API key, you know, something that says I go in there on my Instagram account, I get my little piece of code. Now I go to the plugin and I put it in, and it says now these two things can talk to each other, for example. So depending on what you're pulling over from, say, a social media account, there are some of these API keys. API something program interface.
Application program interface.
Yeah. So that's something you will often find in a number of plugins, where they're telling you to go get this particular key, which is the thing that allows two things to talk to each other, generally. To completely oversimplify.
Steve's question. Steve's still on? Here's Steve drop.
Steve was asking about Divi.
Yeah.
Last I saw.
Let me see if he's.
Can I tell you my point of view on Divi? I was hoping to talk to him.
Let's talk about Divi.
I was hoping to talk to him. My first question would have been, why do you want to know anything about Divi? But if he did, then okay, fair. But here's what happened. A couple of years ago, I decided, well, WordPress said it was going to the block editor. And I hated the block editor. I was never going to use it, and I was going to just retire and drop out of business. I couldn't stand it. So then I started working with it. And what I could see is that WordPress is going to the block editor, and it's getting better.
Yep.
And people like Ben Rittner at Cadence, where Peter and I hung out for half an hour today.
Yeah.
Ben's doing some stuff with that theme that's phenomenal. And I don't see that some of these page builders have a future. Visual Composer, everybody just laughs at it now, but you know, we used it a lot. It was the best thing out there at the time. Then they came up with Elementor, which I have trust issues with, because every time they do an update, it breaks something.
No.
And then we've got Divi, that I think is possibly the least used of the big three, but it's up there. A lot of people use it and like it. What I'm wondering, do you guys think page builders have that? Well, Beaver Builder's up there too, but do you think it's got a really big future, or are we just we're moving to the block editor till something else happens?
Can I throw in my 2 cents? We had a page builder. This goes way back before Gutenberg. Peter and I had a page builder showdown. It was one of our presentations back when we were in person. So we picked sides again, just a friendly showdown. And so I can say, at least my quick 2 cents on this is, again, there's a lot of legacy sites out there that were built prior to Gutenberg block editor being kind of where it is today. So that's one thing that, people are still supporting these sites, and rewriting them in block editor may not be worth it. And I think that's where Steve's case actually is. His site's been around for a while. I still think, as of right now, I would say there's still a place in the world for, whether we call them page builders, or I guess maybe I'd say more about premium block themes. Like I'd say these days I'm probably leaning more into the camp of something like a cadence theme. So again, people aren't familiar with it. WordPress itself, there's free themes you can get to make your site basically look a certain way. A theme is like the layout of your site. There's paid ones you can get, and then there's this freemium ones, like we talked about with plugins. So one that we use, if you go back to our Let's Build the Site Together series on YouTube, you'll see we're using something called Cadence. It's one of those freemium themes. So there's a free version, and then there's add-ons to it. I mean, I tend to think that the things like Cadence have blurred the lines a little bit, because Cadence, I would say Cadence is not a page builder, but some of those premium blocks and things are definitely adding on top of what WordPress does out of the box. I do think the classic page builders, like your Divis and Elementors, they were ahead of their time in a sense a couple of years ago, because that was, to me, that was one of the best, quickest ways to lay out things and to kind of do what the block editor is doing now. So I don't think they're going away anytime soon, but I tend to think that the future is more like the Cadence style of a theme that's doing a lot. I mean, Cadence does a lot of stuff that, the full site editing is trying to do. It does it today better than, who knows where Gutenberg, where WordPress will be in a year or two. So yeah, I probably wouldn't invest a lot of money into page builders, although I have a lifetime Divi thing too, back when they did those. So
yeah. All right, so here's my soapbox. Page builders are going nowhere, meaning, and I don't mean like Indeed, they're going nowhere. They're not going away. All the talk about the block editor, all of these will be working together. When you're talking about the millions and millions of sites, what I find, and Sue, you and I sometimes find ourselves in some of these, like today's group and all, and there's often a kind of echo chamber that happens. But when you go out and look to see how many people are using all of these page builders, as long as Theme Forest still exists and people are downloading a theme that has WP Bakery or Site Origin or something built in, and we're not even talking about those. Elementor is probably going to spin off to be its own standalone cloud-based. Well, actually, it is already, but they're posed to say, because there are people, and this is almost like, dare I say, it's like any kind of thing you're dedicated to, whether it's a religion or a PC Mac or whatever. And the fighting that happens between this or that and all, there's just as many Divi advocates, and they'll die on that hill as there are Beaver Builder or Elementor. I mean, to a lot of people, if you say, how do you build a site? Elementor is the answer. I can't stand it. I used to build sites in Beaver Builder. I go back now after using, and it's like everything to me seems so much harder, but the people who love and use Beaver Builder every day can't stand the block editor because everything is so much harder. It's what you're used to. It's what you build. It's what your background is and all. But I do see that the improvements that have come to the block editor have been, in the last couple of years, have been fantastic in this ability. But I think there was posing a page builder against the block editor, Gutenberg block editor. And again, WordPress has this sort of identity crisis. We don't know what to call things sometimes. Gutenberg is a plugin to test the block editor, but everybody refers to the block editor as Gutenberg. But there's so many capabilities. But I agree that where I think the most success is going to be is these folks that put together a theme that works well with blocks and packages of blocks. And the people who have heard me, I think block patterns are going to be kind of the future of things when people realize how easy it is to put this section and this section. Next thing you know, I have the site that I wanted, and all I have to do is change the images and words, kind of thing. What this leads to, the next part of it, and this is sort of a hot topic with me, and we don't need to spend too much time on it, is the tremendous focus on full site editing that I think applies to such a small percentage of total WordPress users. And I think it's disproportionate. And I also think for our new users, when you load WordPress and the default theme loads, which is a block-based theme, it's not ready, in my opinion, and it's too hard. First thing is go get Cadence or Astra or Blocksy or what am I missing? What are my top 5? Generate Press, and then build from there. And a lot of these have, very nice kind of site starters where you can grab those block patterns or even whole pages through one click. Maybe we can even show that for in a few minutes.
I was going to show
yeah.
Again, not to do a sales pitch on the Divi side, but again, page builders. So the thing that's confusing about Divi, and Elementor is like this too. Divi is not just a page builder. You can use it as a page builder, but you can also use it as a theme with a page builder, and that's how most people generally use it these days. So again, just for folks, it's a test site I have. But one of the key selling points of Divi early on, and I think WordPress still needs to get here, is this idea of pre-made layouts. So we're starting to see this in WordPress now, and people are creating these, but when you look at these things out there, this is hard to compete with right now. I mean, again, if you look at some of these layouts, they're terrible, they're old, they haven't been updated forever, but just if I'm a beginner, and I keep going back to, we have a lot of beginners picking up WordPress. If I'm a beginner and I know I want to create a food and drink business, and I'm a juice shop, I can look at this layout right here and say, yeah, this is good. I'll start with this. I can immediately click. I can do a live demo. I can pick pages of this. Let's say I just want the home page, the contact page. It looks good enough. I'll change these pictures. I can use the entire site, every page in this. It'll copy over the images and give me a starting point. That's where I'm with you, Peter, too, that a lot of times in the WordPress space, because many of us having the conversations are people who are, we forget what it was like to be as a beginner starting off with this blank page. That's where I think Wix and Squarespace and these other, that's still their secret. That's their advantage. They come in with these beautiful templates and say, here you go, start off that way and just start editing. So
yeah, of course, and keeping in mind that they're coming in with, in some cases, dozens of templates, whereas WordPress might have 10,000 in effect if you're looking at themes and things like that. So yeah, the one thing that I think is important to, though, keep in mind with some of the page builders and all this, and you may find something that works really well, but I think it's the portability of the content that you can run into a problem. So the one thing that you've got by using blocks in the core editor is if you wanted to change a lot of things with your theme, you can much more easily than you can if you're using Elementor, Beaver Builder, Divi, and on down the list, because of the way those work as their own kind of complete way of creating content, whereas the block editor is doing it within the WordPress core environment. That was always one of the biggest complaints, right, with Divi, which is once you're in it, you're kind of stuck, because if you turned off the whole Divi theme and
short codes
and stuff that didn't make any sense whatsoever. So
I would say though, we're having that same problem though with custom blocks though. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of, if you purchase, let's say, a premium block package or something, and you turn it off and the license ends, in theory, you still have the HTML and all that. But if you try to edit that block when you don't have a license, it's back to gibberish again. So you have to throw it away. So I'm not quite sure that problem has been solved entirely, even in a block world. So
yeah, the one difference being though, if you're using like the Cadence block collection on Cadence, and then you for some reason want to change your theme to Generate Press, but you keep the Cadence block plugin, everything will work fine. So it's tied to the plugin more than sort of everything. But you're right. I mean, you're making decisions to stick with plugins and all for the most part by saying, okay, I want to use that Cadence plugin. I'm
Hey,
just
Peter, can I just give a quick shout out to Oxygen Builder? I know it's pretty complicated,
yeah,
big learning curve, but
yeah,
God, there's such a good support group on Facebook for it. It's
Yeah.
a very low spam. There's no spam in the support group, and Oxygen itself is like really advanced. It's really easy to do a lot of great things with it.
yeah. No, Oxygen is its own. I have a lifetime license to Oxygen. I don't use it just because it didn't work with the way my brain works for the most part. And again, now when you go to Oxygen, your whole WordPress experience is the Oxygen WordPress experience, which is great if you're in there and that's what you are, you know, what you're all about.
I don't know if that makes me worry about my brain or your brain. I
Yeah,
don't know.
exactly.
Maybe a little of each.
Well, believe me, you know, with every podcast that I listen to and every, you know, streaming video and all, you can hear when people have pros and cons about things and really get kind of even, dare I say, emotional about something. It is related in a lot of times to the way the brain works. Coders are thinking code and they're thinking, I can do that in CSS and a couple lines of code. And why do I need all these plugins and all? Well, you're not talking to the person who has never written a line of code and has no interest in writing a line of code. And on down all the different ways that we are, you know, that it's a really interesting thing when people say definitively it should be this way. And it's like, not for the incredible majority of the people who are DIY builders who are just trying to make something work and don't, when I say CSS, they're like, I think I know that has something to do with the way something looks, but I'm not sure. And I never wrote any cascading style sheet code in my life, and I don't really want to. I want to click a button that says whether it's red or green, you know, that type of thing. So
I've never experimented at all with bricks. Have you guys done anything with bricks?
No.
I have not, but I understand, you know, again, bricks, Zion Builder, Oxygen, they're getting more into that, you know, you're snapping things together. There's a code level. Bricks as, because there's bricks and Brixie. It gets a little, there's Bloxy, Brixie, and bricks. I think Brixie is the full site editor that is favored by a lot of folks because of the way it works. Bricks, I think is, and then there's Brick. Did I say Brixie? There's one with an X and one with a CK. It gets confusing, people. Let me tell you. I have not used it. I've heard people talk about it, and those who, you know, those who stick with it, it's another one. You stick with it, you figure it out. It works the way your brain works. It's going to be the thing that you like to use because it makes sense. You know, there are people who build with Legos and there are people who use paintbrushes, right? There are people who like to type on a typewriter and there are people who like to speak and, you know, have somebody else put all that together. So all these different types of people, these different tools that we have are going to appeal to the different ways that they think. If I show a lot of people Oxygen, it'll be like, no way are they going to be able to work in that because it's just a completely different approach. But for those people that makes sense, or if you dedicate the time, all of a sudden you go, oh my gosh, look how easily all this stuff clicks together, like the Legos with, you know, some code that's attached to it. So.
Yeah, and to answer Mike's, yes, we definitely, the recording will be on our YouTube channel. So, I mean, I would say as a beginner, yeah, don't, you know, kind of the key takeaways from our conversation here, because I think we're having a little bit of an advanced conversation, though, is start simple, especially with WordPress. You can easily overcomplicate things. So, you know, start with the simplest. I'd say go back to our building a site series. I would say at this point, I would recommend the free Cadence theme. And we show on that YouTube series how to install it, kind of how to set it up and get it going. In my opinion, at this point, that's probably the best theme for beginners because it has a lot of power, but it doesn't overwhelm you with that power. It's there if you need it, and you can turn things on and off easily. It's very well supported. One of the other points of this discussion was you don't want to pick something where you're the only person who knows who's using it. Everyone's like, "What? I never heard of that thing before." If you look it up and there's like 50 users, you don't want those plugins or themes or anything. And then whatever tool you choose, learn it, spend time building with it, learning it, because they all have their advantages and disadvantages. There is no perfect tool or hosting or whatever. Just especially as a beginner, the most important thing you can do, I think, is just spending time building things. You know, that's how you're going to learn, and that's how you're going to get questions. So
yeah. If I could, let me share my screen real quick, because this is, again, the type of thing where, let's make sure I get the right screen. Not that one, that one.
Sue has her hand up too after.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sue.
I've got a question that I tried like heck to put into the meetup question things, but it just didn't seem to take. And it's not a simple, it's not an easy, I'm not asking you for a step-by-step. I just want to know, how would you approach this? So I've got speakers at a conference filling out a form with their name, their stuff, their title of the talk, what it's about, typical stuff. I want to make a custom post out of that. I also need it to be as part of a query loop so that I've got an archive page so that you can click the guy's picture, the woman's picture, and get that custom post.
Okay.
Now I'm working with Cadence, Cadence Pro, Gravity Forms, Events Calendar Pro, that's down the road, but how would you, I've got ACF Pro.
Yeah.
I don't have Metabox, but how would you get a filled out form to produce a custom post type? Will, you know, do I have to map it all to all the fields in Gravity Forms to ACF to get Cadence to read it? Do you know, or can I go right from, how would you approach it? And I'm sorry to everybody else, because this is like my singular issue. And I'm asking all the smart people I know.
Well, the first thing is I use Toolset. So when you mentioned ACF and Metabox, these are custom post type plugins that allow us to create our own types of posts, you know. And for the new people, when earlier we were showing the events calendar, for example, those are ultimately something that is its own custom post. It's its own kind of way of entering content, but packaged all around events. A custom post type is something that any WordPress user could actually create on their own. In our build series, we actually did that when we created our pet website. If anyone goes back to YouTube, there's one section where we created something using ACF, advanced custom fields, and custom post type UI, CPT UI, which creates the fields. Now, how would I approach that? Yeah, the connectors between the front end form and the custom post type you set up have improved. I have not used I have Gravity Forms, but I have not used the Gravity Forms to ACF. I'm going to do a quick look up. I think that is a kind of a pretty straight through kind of thing. Fluent Forms is another one that I use as a form builder. And I think that's just a matter of, you click to your custom post type and then it says, okay, what fields do you want? And it's sort of an automatic mapping. But yes, it is.
I'm sort of hoping Cadence does that, because Cadence has dynamic stuff.
Yeah.
I just haven't tried it yet. And I was just wondering if anybody had not with Gravity Forms.
I think what makes this problem, again, this is a good thought experiment for people. I think what makes this an interesting problem is there's really two things you're trying to do. One is you're trying to have people, I assume you don't want it would be easy if you said, oh, I want people to sign into the back end of my website as users or a special role, and then they're creating these custom post types. Well, that's not you want it to be a friendlier experience. You want them to actually just go as if it's an online form, and then behind the scenes, it's being created as a custom post type. So that's,
yeah,
I think that's
more than that, this conference is the first one, and they're going to be in 3 cities, and there are going to be multiple of them.
Yeah.
And I really don't want to have to copy and paste presenter information. So if this works, I can go back and use it on all my TEDx sites that I volunteer for. It's just, this is the biggest time-taking chore each year.
Yeah.
So, all right.
I'll tell you what, I'm interested because a lot of what you see with the Cadence and ACF and advanced custom fields, custom post types is all about dynamically showing the results.
Right, because
As
that's
far as entering it, that the form builder within Cadence is it's good, but it's basic.
Sure.
I think you do need to use a Gravity Forms or a Fluent
or
Forms
something.
or I was gonna say, or one of my new favorites that I really want to experiment with is a form builder called WS Form. Its ability to connect to everything is phenomenal.
I heard about that.
Yeah, WS Form. It's a no-code form builder that connects. It's really, really something.
As a last resort, I'm going to take this to Ben at Cadence.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask him to put a video up and show me how to do it.
There you go.
I don't think it's going to work through Cadence. And again, I think it's not. So if you think about what Cadence is by default, it's a theme. It's a theme that can display. You can sometimes display dynamic content on your pages and posts. But what you're asking, I think, is still you need something that glues together a custom post type, which is not, Cadence doesn't create custom post types, and the online form, which can be any kind of online form builder, Ninja Forms or whatever. So that glue in between is not going to be anything in Cadence. I think the other way, so that glue could be something like a form builder itself, saving custom post types for you. I would be surprised, Peter, but I'm always surprised at that. Even Fluent Forms would do something like that. Gravity Forms is its own beast.
But I can take Gravity Forms fields and map them to ACF.
Yeah.
And if I do that, and then I build what Cadence calls an element or a template.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I should be able to find those fields and put them into a pretty layout for a speaker page.
100%.
Display
So
them after they're saved.
Yeah. So ACF is your hub, right? ACF is your data storage thing. You create a custom post type, you have all your fields. Now you have two ends to that. The form that's going to write into that custom post type, and Cadence that's going to dynamically output.
Right.
So 100% you could do what you want. And now it's just, I don't even, the ACF to Cadence is relative, it's easy, it's dynamic content. It's just a matter of picking the field. It's just your form. And I think, like I said, WS Form, Gravity Form, I believe, I'm pretty confident Fluent Form Pro all have.
All right, I'm going to run this. I'm going to stick this onto a test site and start playing with it.
Yeah. I'll probably do the same thing after the call.
Yeah, I'm just getting all the people who are smart to tell me how they would approach it.
Yeah.
And then let me see which one works for me and which one works at all. Because if I can do this and I can move this into 14 other sites I volunteer for, it takes like 10 or 15 hours out of my day.
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And we'll do
also
some
throw in-
follow-up. Feel free to.
Is there a plugin that would do all this together in one? Yeah, and Sue, let us know how you solve this too. That's Gene brings up a good point. You'll do the show and tell at our next summer session.
So I am on I'm on the right. What I was showing, can you see my screen right now?
Yeah.
So I've got plugins. I'm just looking at my installed plugins on this Cadence blocks, and I'm using, for anybody, sorry to click around fast, but the active theme is Cadence. So this is on your WordPress admin screen. You've got some main areas that you're looking at are posts, media, pages, comments if you're choosing to show. Now Fluent Forms is showing because I have the Fluent Form plugin active. If you are using, if you're not using the Fluent Form plugin, you won't see this. And this is one of the first things that gets confusing to folks who are first starting out. They're going, I don't see that. Well, because that's a new menu item added because of the plugin. Pets was a custom post type that we added in one of our demos. Blocks is because I have a particular thing. And now under themes, this is where we're showing some of the Astra, Blocksy, Generate Press, and the Cadence theme that is now active. And what I was looking to do here is under pages, if I wanted to add a new page,
Hey, can I go back to Sue's because I was multitasking?
Oh yeah, please. Did you find the answer?
If you look at least Fluent Forms, if you look at Fluent Forms Pro, can I steal the screen for a second, Peter? Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, go ahead. Yep. No.
So Fluent Forms Pro at least has an integration module here called custom post type creation. So if you create a post, so it'll create a custom post type for you on form submission. I think that's what something like that's what you want if you're using Fluent Forms. Is Sue still there? Did we lose Sue?
I think we did.
Oh, okay. All right.
She
I'll follow
she
up
got
with
what she
her.
needed in
Yeah. She left us.
Exactly.
Interesting. I learned
Yeah,
something today. Good to
exactly.
know.
Yeah, and I won't take the screen back yet because it's funny. I'm looking for the one thing that was just there. Again, one of the things that can be interesting is every once in a while you run into an issue where the browser itself is not playing nice. A lot of these page builders and even the block editor and all use like JavaScript and things like that. And every once in a while, something that you would expect to happen a certain way just doesn't, and refreshing or just closing the browser and reopening it.
Maybe while you're recovering, let me just show again, this is just more for people, and we're not, remember, no sales promotions here, but whatever form plugin you're using, again, when you're choosing a form plugin, the nice thing is finding something that's flexible. We talked about Gravity Forms is one, very popular, been around for a long time. I personally am not a big fan because I don't think it's very user-friendly, but it does have a lot of integrations. And the one that if you watch our series of building a site together, we use this other tool called Fluent Forms, the free version. The paid version, though, again, there's other, like Ninja Forms has things like this as well too. It has all these integrations, and here's the one I was pointing out to Sue. The ability to you can create a blog post based on a form being submitted. That'd be nice. You may have a use for that, or a custom post type. But look at all these other integrations this just happens to have. You can integrate you to MailChimp, which is obvious, sign people up to a newsletter. Trello. So Trello is a task management software. So maybe you have something where somebody submits a form, you close a task in a project, something like that. So again, I think as you're evaluating, here's one I've used quite a bit, and maybe I can demo at some point, saving the data outside of your website to a Google Doc or a Google Sheet is really, I use this quite often because so I don't have to give access to the website to other people. They can just open up a Google Doc. So again, something to look at for, as you're evaluating a form, this is a paid plugin, but sometimes it's worth paying a little bit extra just to get that kind of those additional features. How's your browser doing, Peter?
Doing well. All right. Do you see our site? Hang on. Do you see our site?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the site that we've been building. This is, again, not that we're promoting Cadence, but it's offers a lot of great tools kind of built into it. Under plugins, just to show this, we have not only is the Cadence theme working, but we have the Cadence blocks page builder features plugin loaded. And if you go to pages and you add a new page, this is an example of like their own version of the block patterns, right? So where they have a design library where you can pick like sections. Say you wanted to add a hero section on your page, you click it. Demonstrated this a few times, and now that gets dropped onto your page. And in fact, if I preview this, that block with all of that content. Now I might go back in here and change this. Not might, I would go in here and now change the text. This is one of the things too with a lot of the tools that are out there, and this even goes to themes. People have often purchased a theme because it had pictures that matched the thing that they wanted. The pictures are almost irrelevant. They're more of a suggestion. You replace those with your pictures, you replace the words with your words, but you can have all this functionality kind of built right into the block pattern, or with Cadence, they have their design library. I'm going to remove that whole thing. But even, oops, I'm going to remove this whole thing. Oh, there were two that came over. But what you can also do is, under the design library that they have, starter packs where you can basically load whole sites. And on the pro version, you have even more. And here's an example of where it's going to show you all the different pages that you can add. So this is an example of that, comparing WordPress to some of the other tools, where the simplicity of creating things could be just a matter of, I like this site, give me all the pages. Now I'm going to go in and edit the content. I'm going to change the images and things like that. This is built into certain higher and more modern themes that have embraced the block editor, have a design library, have block patterns associated with them, to the point where you could even, load multiple sites. Astra is another a great example of that, where there is the Astra theme is great, and then they have the Astra starter templates, where you can go and just basically you load the Astra theme, and then there's free versions and premium versions, and you can load this whole site basically with one click, including whatever plugins might be needed, whether it's their blocks or a form, a free form block or something like that. So these are the examples of, how much do you need to build from scratch versus, I like the way this looks, I want my site to look like that. It's like, okay, load this, but now maybe your site isn't skiing. It could be hiking, it could be gardening, it could be anything. And then you're just a matter of saying, okay, this is a gallery, I'm going to change it to my images, I'm going to put my text there. Or you're going to say, I like all this, but maybe I don't need one of these sections, and you can delete it. So super powerful, a bit overwhelming, but kind of when you land in a place where you're using like a Cadence or a Astra, probably two of the best for these kind of pre-built sites, and you kind of focus on it, you can do a whole lot in a relatively short period of time because of what they're offering as some of these pre-built designs.
I think that's a good way to bring it back to my opening controversial thing too, of it's there. I mean, that's the thing. Again, these Wix and Squarespace, they have all these kind of things in it too, and that's the attractive part. And you're right. I think some of these people aren't aware of the fact that you can get these pre-built things in WordPress as well. I mean, WordPress is trying to do that with patterns and trying to do that with that repository of the blocks that you can start to use. So I'm hoping, again, as WordPress starts to continue to evolve in the future, this will be built more into WordPress too. Like today, you can pretty easily download just section patterns, but having a repository someplace where you can either download a coffee shop website, starter website for free that people can manipulate, I think would be a great thing in the future. So
yeah.
I know we're just looking at the time. We only got a couple minutes left. I don't see any other questions in the chat. So hopefully folks enjoyed this and not many people dropped. You hung around for summer school. Look at you, good students, staying to the end. Give us feedback. Again, I think Peter and I threw this around of just is this worthwhile? I know we covered, it was good. I felt like we've covered some decent things. I know we've had a lot of beginners join the group recently, but if you're not a beginner, hopefully you're still getting things out of it. The thing I love is I always learn something from these. I learned a few things tonight, tips, tricks, suggestions from people.
Can I ask? I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I kind of want to. Lance, are you on? Are you?
No.
I don't know if Lance, I see him, he's there, but I'm always curious with the folks that I see that attend a lot of meetups, and where they have success and what they've seen from other meetups that they might want to contribute. Another thing about our meetup too is there's some interesting conversations in the overall community with meetups, and the whole the topic of diversity, the topic of bringing in kind of new leadership, even to the point where it's like, hey, maybe there should be terms of like 2 years and then other people need to come in. Ray and I have been doing this for a long time. We enjoy doing that. It's a lot of work. This one much less. This is us just enjoying the conversation. That's, you know, the unscripted ones. But in terms of, you know, having other folks, we're doing our best, and getting feedback does help, and saying, hey, maybe sometimes we get either too complicated or not complicated enough, or maybe we should break things into more technical and less technical and things like that. So any and all feedback is always welcome and appreciated.
And summertime is a good time to try different things. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I think it's, you know, we'll keep these open. Gene, did you have your hand raised, or were you just giving us a high five?
No, I had my hand up. I was giving you feedback. I have attended a lot of meetups with once the full site editing has started. So
Yeah.
So this is my introduction to WordPress, and I enjoy this meetup, the Hartford group. You're one of my favorites. I always learn something. You have great slides. You stay on track. You don't. Some of these things people, they'll say, like in the you know, on the meetup page, watch the videos on how to make a post, or what a template part is, and then there'll be 3 minutes into the presentation, and someone will say in the chat, what's a template post? What's a template part? And they stop the presentation to explain to that one person, and there's 50 people in the meetings, what a template post is. So I like how you guys handle it. You just say, okay, you explain a little, but you don't take 15 minutes to explain something that's not what the topic of the meeting is. So my feedback to you is to keep doing what you're doing. It's great. You guys make great presentations. You speak well, you work well together. I really enjoy it.
Awesome.
So
Thank you,
that's
Jane.
my stuff.
Appreciate that very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
I'll echo those sentiments, and do I get a gift card too?
Exactly. That's right.
Wait a minute.
No, you guys, since you started this, you know, since way back at the library, you know, with Ray running the thing up there, you guys have done an amazing amount of work to provide a lot of help to a wide range of abilities and interests, and you're to be congratulated for that. And my only idea would be, you know, take some weight off yourself. See if you could get like a guest speaker to just do a whole program.
Yeah,
You've read our
we're talking
mind.
about that.
You've read our mind.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Peter, I just got a question on that bunny net. It's like, what am I missing? Like, you know, drop the other shoe. Because have you compared it to like Cloudflare's like slightly more expensive? Is there features that it lacks? I mean, so you play Cloudflare is like what, 4 cents, you know, so big deal.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, I bought into it based on the explanation given around the release of the Presto Player video player. The cost was, I put in like $20 2 years ago for a site, and never, you know, this particular site doesn't dish up all that much video. And because there's a direct integration, so they're hosting it and the plugin is showing the videos, it's become don't have to think or worry about it. So, you know, I'm not trying to make it do much more at this point than showing those videos, and they didn't want it on YouTube, and there was reasons where and why we were serving things up the way we were. But it's worked great, and it's been kind of, you know, one of those out of sight, out of mind, but never have to worry about it kind of thing. So
great, thank you.
Yeah, it's been good.
Heather, did you have your hand up?
Yeah. Did we lose her? Oh no.
Oh no. I was gonna just say thank you again, and it's been very helpful because my last couple of years I've actually just learned on how to do static websites. So I know HTML, I know CSS and JavaScript, but what I'm trying to learn is how to integrate it into WordPress, because I want a site that's more dynamic.
Yeah.
So I think my biggest struggle is I look at the page builders and I look at all the stuff and it's just like, whoa, it's familiar because of the different sayings of it. But
Yeah.
actually tonight learning about the Oxygen builder, that looks like more of what I'm kind of looking for as far as a builder. So I'm definitely going to look into
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, exactly. I keep going into the, the different tools for the different ways, approaches, backgrounds, what you're historically used to doing things. Yeah, definitely. Just understanding initially what the basic part of WordPress is. There's a row in a database that has an ID number, it has a title, it has content, it has other metadata, when it was posted, who owns it, that type of stuff. And now you're taking that data and you're putting it into this template that's showing it on a different part of the screen. Now you're getting in, it's the dynamic, it's the separation of the content from the different ways that you can present it. And then you realize, oh, my same content with a different theme or with different plugins can look completely different. But I am not touching the content because the content is stored as content.
Right.
And the theme is the way it looks, and the plugins are the way, the functionality that's been added. So yeah.
Well, cool.
Cool.
Well, I am learning PHP, so if I ever learn it enough to present it, I will offer to do that here. If anyone's interested.
We're gonna hold you. We're
Thumbs
gonna
up.
hold you to that, Heather. I need another coder on this thing. Oh, there's other coders.
Yeah, I can't help them with the code.
All right. Well,
I
awesome.
can deconstruct code. I just can't write it.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us tonight. We hope you come back to summer school again and bring your questions. Again, you think of new things in between. I think this is the format we're going to try to keep it kind of loose through the summer. So, we'll go as long as we want. We'll bring up, what we'd really like to do. Again, if you're willing, the other thing that's always fun for me and Peter is looking at your websites,
Yeah.
Be brave, just bring them up, just to talk about them too, or show examples of things that you're like, we're gentle, we'll give you suggestions and tips too. So think about that for next month. Bring a site with you or a page or something. We'd love to take a look at that, just give you some feedback and talk about it. It's always more helpful having an example, I think, than a blank page. So
That's great. I'll do that.
awesome.
So this is going to be once a month, June, July, and August.
Yeah, well, the summer sessions, we normally meet once a month
Yeah.
anyway. We typically have more formal presentations, but in the summer, we just kind of do these pretty loose. So we hope you all come back for summer school next month.
Yeah.
And use the meetup chat or Facebook group.
Right, and I'll send out all the info. So if you're new, I'll send out all the info with the links to our Facebook group, to our YouTube when the video is uploaded, probably sometime later tomorrow-ish.
Okay.
And if always reach out to us, like I said, if you have any questions outside of these meetups. So
Thank you.
everyone.
Great.
Have a good
Great
night.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Have a
Good seeing y'all.
good one.
See you. Bye.